In Chapter 8, we're going to continue looking at chemical reactions, but now we're going to take it a step further, which is called stoichiometry. And stoichiometry looks at reactions in terms of the quantities of chemicals that are involved. In other words, what we're interested in Chapter 8 is how much of a product can we make if we react together a certain amount of our reactants, or if we know the amount of one reactant, how much of the other one do we have to add to it to make the reaction complete. So we can look at a chemical reaction like a recipe. So here's a simple little recipe making sandwiches from cheese, lettuce, and bread. And we want to know how many sandwiches we can make if we have 15 pieces of cheese and an unlimited supply of everything else. Unlimited means we have an excess of the lettuce and we have an excess of the bread. What's limiting the amount of sandwiches we can make is how much cheese we're starting with. So we're going to use our dimensional analysis. How many sandwiches could we make starting from 15 pieces of cheese? And the key relationship in stoichiometry is always the balanced chemical equation, which tells us for this recipe it requires 3 pieces of cheese to make one sandwich. So that's our mole to mole ratio between cheese and sandwiches. So I can put a time sign in a line and convert cheese into sandwiches using the coefficients. It's a 3-to-1 ratio. 3 pieces of cheese make one sandwich. So when I multiply through, I'm going to get an answer of 5 sandwiches. By itself, that's not a very interesting problem, but if we take it to the next problem, this time we don't have an excess of everything else. We have a limited supply of cheese, lettuce, and bread. So if we have 3 reactants, we're going to do the same sort of calculation we just did for each one of those reactants. So we're going to say how many sandwiches could we make starting from 21 pieces of cheese. And we just saw the cheese to sandwich ratio was 3-to-1. So if all 21 pieces of cheese get used up, we would make 7 sandwiches. But we can't tell if that's correct until we compare the other reactants. So we want to figure out how many sandwiches 8 pieces of lettuce could make. And the relationship between lettuce and sandwich is 1 piece of lettuce makes 1 sandwich. So we turn lettuce into sandwich, fill in our ratio 1-to-1, so we have enough lettuce to make 8 sandwiches. For the bread, we're starting with 12 pieces of bread, and we're going to convert bread into sandwiches. This time it's 2-to-1 ratio. So 2 pieces of bread make 1 sandwich, and we get 6 sandwiches. Once we've done the calculations, now we have to think about what those answers are telling us. We have enough cheese to make 7 sandwiches. We have enough lettuce to make 8, and we have enough bread to make 6. So if you're actually making as many sandwiches as possible, you are going to run out after you make your 6th sandwich. You're going to run out of the bread. We have excess cheese, we have excess lettuce, but the bread is what we call the limiting reactant. That limits how many sandwiches we could make. If we had more bread, we have some cheese and some lettuce left over, so we could make more. However, 6 is the maximum we could make given our starting conditions, and that's called the theoretical yield. The other 2 reactants, cheese and lettuce, are excess. So, given the starting conditions, the most sandwiches we could ever make is 6. Notice we don't add these together. We can't add 7 plus 8 plus 6. That would be a total of 21 sandwiches. We don't have enough to make 21. We only have enough to make 6. If you hire someone to put together your sandwiches with that starting conditions and you come back and you find out that they only made 4 sandwiches, then you could calculate a percent yield. Percent yield is the actual yield divided by the theoretical yield times 100%. So the actual is what you get in real life. If you do the experiment, how many of your product did you make? And we made 4 sandwiches. In theory, we could have made 6 sandwiches. Maybe something happened. Maybe they dropped some things on the floor. They lost them. They didn't make all 6 sandwiches. They only made 4. So this would be a just over 66% yield.